Patch 8.2 brings us a new mount system. It's essentially the first major systemic change to mounts that they have made in years, and therefore could have a large impact going forward. Past that, I've got a list of all the new mounts that we know about in patch 8.2 so far, and the Pathfinder Part 2 unlock that will enable full flight in the new zones of Mechagon and Nazjatar. The 8.2 news cycle has begun, and we have a lot to talk about. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. So, mounts are getting quite the update in patch 8.2, and it's kind of funny, with mount equipment and actually a few of the systems in this patch, they have happened to line up fairly well with suggestions that I've made in the past for the game, which is kind of nice to see. Now, I released my overall impressions and a detailed look at the new Heart of Azeroth revamp last night. That was late enough so that EU will probably have missed those videos, so be sure to check them out. Okay, first let's talk about equipment. It's sort of cool, but actually I think is kind of mixed. So mount equipment is a new slot on your character that is accessed through the mount window. Mount equipments themselves are items that you put into that slot, and whatever is in that slot, well, that will be applied to almost all of your mounts whenever you ride them. So it's not a way to customize a single mount, instead it's a way to activate an ability or an effect for any mount that you're riding. So far we know about 3 of them. The saddle chute will deploy an emergency parachute whenever you dismount in air. This actually could be more major than you think, depending on how Blizzard execute it. So if it has enough horizontal motion being inherited from your past motion, then it could act as a glider, which would be quite nice. It's also equally possible though that they'll just reuse the existing multi-passenger mount parachute system. Then we have the comfortable riders barding. This will remove being dazed, which is a very nice quality of life improvement indeed. And then finally we've got the inflatable moon shoes. These will give you water walking to any mount, and they are going to be available from the Anglers faction. Of course, they make the Water Strider, well, somewhat irrelevant, and actually, Blizzard are removing water walking from Water Striders. Instead, existing owners will get 1 inflatable moon shoe for free, and they will find that the Anglers vendor sells more of them at a greatly reduced cost. Yeah, they're consumable, but more on that later, because the implementation here honestly is a bit strange. Next, mounts with existing effects such as the Sky Golem will not benefit from mount equipment. If they were to make the Sky Golem's ability be a mount equipment, then it would likely be removed from the Sky Golem, just like what they've done for the Water Strider. Though do note that they do, however, stack with class effects. Now, one odd part of equipment is that they aren't actually rare things that you unlock once. They are instead commodity items. Applying a new mount equipment will destroy the previous one. With many of these supposedly actually coming from professions, you can really see that it's sort of therefore designed to stimulate the economy and provide a little bit more gameplay there. So really, I'm left being very mixed on this system. In typical Blizzard fashion, it is designed very defensively. They said that they've made this so that no one mount feels mandatory, and I sort of understand that. Basically, it feels like this, it just exists because they know some people who don't like the Water Strider use the Water Strider because they like the water walking. But the thing is, this means they're committing to no one mount really meaning that much or being that special, because they don't want a single mount to feel mandatory, and I think that is just boring. I think the Guild Wars 2 model is so much better for an MMO, providing just far more interesting rewards for players. You see, in Guild Wars 2, mounts of different categories have different characteristics based on what makes them, unique as mounts. So they're mechanically distinct, with each own mount family having its own masteries to unlock, and that's something that ties into the game's endgame progression. It is so much better than what Blizzard are doing here. With mount equipment though, there's none of that. It's just a load of consumables to load up your bag with. Now, sure, they could have cool effects, but I just don't think they're all that exciting in their current form. I would far rather they were powerful permanent unlocks that Blizzard put more design time into, perhaps tying them into things like being exalted with a reputation or completing a really challenging achievement or a rare achievement or an obscure one. The strange thing for me is that this is almost a bit of a nerf. on what we currently have, because right now you can get the days free effect through a consumable. I mean, the same goes for the other effects, right? So you've got the blacksmithing hoof plates and stirrups, which let you interact while mounted and have a 20% move speed increase. You've got the engineering mount speed increase item. You've got the anti-daze item from leatherworking. And of course, water walking came from Death Knights. That was a bit of, like, that was something that made Death Knights feel unique. It was something that was a potion that you could get. So it seems like they're actually kind of losing something here. Like, will those existing items still work in 8.2? Will they stack? How does that work? Is this just us getting one new baseline mount power? I don't know. Like, personally, I wish each family had a perk. Each family of mounts had a perk that made them different, even if that did extend to things that were useful in non-instanced combat. Let a dragon breathe fire. Let a horse gallop fast. You know, let a boar have like a charge that like gores the enemy. I don't know, it's kind of weird. Now additionally, for most players, I think especially those who enjoy mounts, I don't think they'll be interested in equipment that is continually destroyed whenever you apply a new one, like gems. I think people would far rather work towards a more impactful mount equipment that is a permanent unlock that gives you something to tinker with over time. I think this would provide Blizzard another long-term reward mechanism without tying it so much to the economy. I don't know, I just think that having a list of unlocks to actually progress through is a lot more satisfying, and I don't think people want to have their bags full of loads of different mount equipments, and I feel like for a lot of the people who enjoy mounts, I think they will feel bad when it's like every time they apply new mount equipment, they're destroying an old one, and that's costing them money. I really don't think that's an ideal situation. So really, there's just a bunch of specifics here that I have problems with. This could be a net positive, but it is also them committing to the least interesting version of mount customization that I can think of. So it's nice to have, but it's not exciting. Now look, if they were to have a epic or legendary quality one that took a long time to unlock and gave you a lot of power for world content or, you know, really cool effects, then this could be the delivery system for some really fun mechanics that players would get a lot out of. We'll just have to see about the actual equipment that they put in, but the base system, yeah, I'm lukewarm on it. Next up, let's discuss Pathfinder. So, Battle of Azeroth Pathfinder Part 2 is going to work in a similar fashion to Legion Pathfinder Part 2. One of the requirements is revered reputation with the new factions, so that will be your factions Nazjatar reputation plus the Mechagon reputation. It will likely also involve the standard zone exploration, and because of that, it'll likely be 2 to 3 weeks of time for most people to get through. Now, we're not sure about the exact pacing of Nazjatar, but we do know that Mechagon is designed to not really be that content gated, so you should be able to get Mechagon done fairly quickly if you put in the time. It's a more time-the-style-like zone, so it's less about you waiting on time-gated rep stuff, and it's more about you just actually going there and doing the content. At least that's what we think so far. So that's basically how Pathfinder Part 2 will work. And one thing that I was kind of satisfied when I heard it was Jeremy saying that flying around the caverns of Nazjatar is really cool. And just because he said that, it seems to me like they are designing some elements of these new zones with the flying mounts in mind. So with them saying that Mechagon has more secrets than any other zone in terms of its density, I'm wondering if they'll have like hidden little things for flying so that once you unlock flying, you actually kind of get new stuff to explore in those zones. I think that would be a really cool thing. Of course, no guarantee. Next though, let's talk about the new mounts of this patch. They revealed a few more, and that brings the total number of known 8.2 mounts to 10. So we've got a mechanical Parrot mount that comes from Pathfinder Part 2. There is then a mechanical wheel mount that looks really quite cool indeed, seems to have a pretty cool mount special that involves backflip, but it does have a bit of a resemblance to a certain thing that Mr. Garrison made in a certain episode of South Park 18 years ago. So there's that. Continuing the mechanical theme, there is a new mechanical cat mount, which I'm pretty much down for. It seems really cool. It comes from the Mechagon zone, and it seems to, at its core, be an unlock based on the zone's resource mechanics. Once it's unlocked, though, they said that you'll be able to unlock new paint jobs for it. Now, whether that just means you unlock new tinted variants of the mounts that are new entries into the mount journal, or it's you tinting your existing mount, that remains to be seen. If it is the latter, then it kind of would show their ability to have you swap tints of a mount that you own, and maybe that could open up some more progression in the future. We then have the Krav mount, which will walk sideways, looks pretty great, and then there's a four-legged thing thing that kind of looks like a Xantalari Druid cat form, so that's pretty cool. There's then a really cool seahorse mount that of course we saw in BlizzCon. Then there are 2 Basilisk mounts from PvP, as well as a new Drake mount from PvP. So a pretty solid roster of new mounts so far, but there of course will be new reveals over time. So there you go, that's the new mount systems of this patch. Yeah, I was really excited to hear about the idea of mount equipment, but the more that I thought about it, yeah, it's mixed. I've got to be honest with you here. I'm not particularly excited for it because of the way that they've chosen to implement it, and I think for me it's almost more so the philosophy behind it, where they really made it so that, you know, they made it so that every single mount would be 100% viable, and I think that's just a really sad thing to do, because future mounts are actually not that exciting a reward for me anymore, because there are so many mounts in the game. Like, things like the Sky Golem are exciting because they're unique, and that's why people get excited about things like the Sky Golem. Having perfect balance all the time really isn't great for the game. Now, perfect balance within gameplay can be good, but it can also mean that in non-competitive instances, you have classes that are less wacky and fun, which actually can be bad for probably the majority of people who play the game. Now, the thing is, whenever that balance is applied to a reward system like mounts, I think that's when it clearly is just a negative. Having every single mount be equally viable and equally competitive, I just think it means that every mount is just a skin of the same mount. And if you look at Guild Wars 2, where, you know, in Guild Wars 2, like, horses operate differently too. Like, they've got these kind of hoppy, they're just hoppy things, I believe, that like have jumping powers. I know they've just unveiled flying mounts for that game, so I need to go and have a look at those. I know they have their water mounts. They've got like I think a frog mount, but basically their mounts are in different like families, and the families all have different, like, you know, move speeds and abilities and ways that they work. And the thing about the World of Warcraft mounts is they could be just turned into families as well. Like, you know, your horse-like things, your dragon-like things, your cat-like things, and they could all have different abilities. I just think that would be so much more exciting. Hopefully that's something they do in an upcoming expansion. I don't think it's beyond the scope of a single patch to just add a new thing for each family of mount. But there you go, that's my thoughts on everything so far with the mounts in this patch. I'm still excited to see what equipments they provide, especially if they do try to make some more, you know, deep mechanically interesting ones. So, thank you very much for watching this video. Let me know what you think down below, and with that, I'll see you next time.
Mm-hmm.